Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. It's not going to be a very long webinar, but I'm really grateful that you accepted the invitation and that you've joined me here today. And I'd like to particularly say hi to all of those of you who I know, which is quite a large number from the RSVPs that I saw, friends and family and people that I've worked with, and I'm thrilled that you still are enthusiastic and wanting to find out more about not just my new school of alchemy transformation, which we'll talk about in a moment, but also the power of unconditional love, which sits at the very heart, as you know, those of you that read my book, The Secret of the Alchemist. This is really what this book is all about, and that this book is inspired, as you know, by what I learned when I published The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. So that sort of gives us the context of the school. And so this webinar is sort of going to have two parts to it. I want to talk some more based on some recent conversations that I've had with people who have asked me into their lives to help them through that breakthrough moment, that alchemy moment, when they just need that extra helping hand to remove, usually it's an emotional block, into true empowerment. So I'm going to talk a bit about that, but I'm also going to talk about my own journey and why I developed the school. So just a quick heads up about the school to start with. It's been a year in progress. In fact, when I finally handed over my manuscript to John Hunt Publishing for my book, that was pretty much the day I decided I was going to start writing the school. And it is extensive. I got quite scared at one moment and thought, will I ever stop writing this? There's going to have to come a point. And thanks to my team, and I want to do a big shout out to the Com Holland team who beaver away behind the scenes doing all the social media work and have been building the school inside the software that we've used. It's a software called Kajabi, by the way, which is amazingly professional. So we're thrilled with the outcome of the way the school is organized and how you can work your way through. So the school is based on the need that I discovered in that we needed more information as a group of people pursuing true empowerment and personal inner transformation. We needed more information about the role of ancient alchemy, the principles of ancient alchemy, some of which I've outlined in my book, but in the school I go into much more depth. But more importantly than that, not just the theory of alchemy and why it works, which I do cover, but also, more importantly, the power of alchemy to help us draw upon the real power, which is unconditional love, which sits at the heart of all things. So just a quick summary about school. The school has got lots of components. I'm inviting all of you here to seriously consider becoming lifetime members. And we debated whether we should do annual subscription or monthly subscription or lifetime membership. And then as I was asking Love what the answer was to that, Love pretty made it quite clear that, when we commit to personal transformation, it's for life. It's not for a month or a year. It's for life. So we've made it very affordable for a lifetime membership so that we can all get to know each other. We can work together as well as working on our own if we wish. You don't have to contact anybody else. It's an online school. It has 5 modules. There are 3 lessons in each module. There are introductions and summaries, and the whole thing is on video. So you can listen to me lecturing on each lesson, on each module, and as you work your way through, or you can read it online. You have the ability to download Word documents of each lesson. You can download PDFs. There's even an app on your mobile phone so that will remember where you reached in your last section of the study, and you can do it at your own pace, and you can literally probably get through it if you did nothing else apart from the school if you fulfilled all the exercises and did all the workshops that I recommend to do in the privacy of your own home, I would say you're looking probably about 2 months' work. So it is substantial. But to cover the ground, to cover the work itself in a transformational way within one's own consciousness and one's own conscious, then that's not going to happen in 2 months. If it does happen, then we'll instantly send you a certificate to say that you're an alchemist, because if you can see that kind of transformation happening in that space of time, then that's amazing. But most people, myself included, it takes a while. Some people it can take several months, some people it can take several years. So that's the reason that we offered lifetime membership. So once you're in, there's no limit. And I will be adding new modules to what I'll be calling the certificate course in Alchemy Transformation, which is the sort of the heart, the body of the school. And as you work your way through that, we've got several things going on to support that. There's going to be a monthly webinar like this, a Zoom webinar, I hasten to add, where we're all going to be able to meet and have a conversation together, talk about our progress, share things with one another as we've moved along our path of transformation using the principles of ancient and modern alchemy. And I'm sort of coining a Church of England phrase, hymns ancient and modern. And I'm alchemy, ancient and modern, because both are important. The modern bit is not so much about what the Egyptian alchemists discovered in their earliest times. It's more about what Carl Jung discovered about the relationship between his theory of psychoanalysis and early alchemy, and how the two are so closely combined. And I just want to talk a little bit about that as part of the heart of one of the core beliefs when you come into the school. If you haven't already picked it up, from reading my book, The Secret of the Alchemist, you'll realize that one of the basic principles of alchemy is the belief and the knowledge, because it's real, it actually exists, in this substance, as they called it, called prima materia. Now, in my studies of ancient alchemy, and in my reading of Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, where he says all things are one, which is also the same concept of prima materia, it is that there is an underlying bedrock creative force living in all things. Some people call it God, which is absolutely fine. Some people call it spirit, which is also fine. There must be 20 names or more for this force, this energy. When I read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho the first time in my office back in Sydney, back in 1993, one of the things I realized from that book was that Paulo was revealing, which was a massive eye-opener to me, that prima materia, the force that lives inside all things, has a nature and a character, and that, of course, is unconditional love. And the secret to becoming an alchemist in our own lives is to discover the ability to allow that force, that power, because it's not just a thought or a feeling or a good intent that I want to be nice to other people. I mean, that is all great, but that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about unconditional love. When I talk about unconditional love, I mean that there is an energy that lives in two places. On the one hand, it lives within our own souls, within our own heart, within our own conscious, whatever name we want to give to that spiritual or enlightened part of ourselves. But it also lives in the universe, in all things, material and immaterial. And when the alchemists were doing their work, what they discovered was that this, what they call prima materia, first matter, which is first in priority, but first in terms of existence. In other words, unconditional love, or prima materia, is where we all came from originally. This was the beginning. This is the omega of life. And when we pass, when we go back to dust, then we become our soul, the spirit of ourselves goes back to rejoin that unconditional love. So we come from it and we'll go back to it. But in the meantime, It's a power that is at our full disposal. And one of the things I promised in my email to you before tonight was that I was going to talk about how we can harness that power. And to do that, specifically, I want to just read a little bit, if I may, if you'll permit me, from my course, from the school, from the certificate course in Alchemy Transformation. And it's actually, this bit lives in Module 1, Lesson 2. And the whole concept, in fact, the whole title of Module 1 is, what is the power of unconditional love and how does it work? Where does it come from? And I talk quite a bit about Santiago and his journey in the parable of the alchemist. And that is the sort of the starting point. But then I come to this, because this is the one question that I get asked repeatedly by almost everybody that I work with, is how do I experience unconditional love and the power of unconditional love within my own life? In other words, how can I tap into that? How can I utilize that? So I'm just going to read you a little bit here from my course. And as I said, this is Module 1, Lesson 2. And the key thing here is that we're trying to explore the foundation of the power of unconditional love within our own being. And that is the secret. The secret to the power of unconditional love is that it already lives within us. Let's just think about that for a moment. When I often think of power and forces, I often think of it being out there, somewhere else, not necessarily in me. But when I read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, what I realized was that Santiago's shift in his life, when he began to believe that he was loved, that he was surrounded by a compassionate, loving force that was going to take him to the pyramids and achieve his dream, which is his inner journey of transformation, that it was definitely going to be on the topic of unconditional love, and he would find it within himself. And this happens in an episode with the character Melchizedek, right at the beginning of the story. And one of the key things about his encounter with Melchizedek is that he is revealed in the marketplace his very own secret thoughts, many of which he's tried to keep hidden, many of which he's avoided for most of his life. But Melchizedek very calmly, very lovingly reveals this to him in a way that nobody has ever done before. And this is the key this is why I want to explain this. This is the key to understanding the power of unconditional love. It is the force that accepts us with no conditions, without judgment, that wants us to enable ourselves to love that part of ourselves as well. At the very heart of the basic analogy of alchemy is the ability to turn base things into gold. So lead into gold is the most famous sort of aspect of alchemy that most of us remember. Now, the power that enables that to happen within our own unconscious self is unconditional love. And what this requires, and this is part of why I felt the school was needed, is a number of steps are required to reach that point. And the first step is the ability to love those parts of ourselves that we constantly reject. That shadow part, as Carl Jung called it, those parts that we condemn, that we run from, that we fear, that are potentially the most destructive, the bits that we just plain don't like about ourselves, those are the bits that need loving. Now, most of us would like to find a therapy or a way of getting rid of them. I'd like to throw them away. I'd like to throw myself away when we say that, because effectively that is what we're saying. There is a whole part of myself which I just don't accept. And the moment that we don't accept it, then it no longer is part of ourself. And it is impossible to manifest unconditional love in our life unless we have done that for ourselves. And what I found was that in the principles of alchemy, going through the black, the white, and the red phases, we can find a way not just to face those parts of ourselves, those parts that are probably the obstacles that are holding us back and moving us forward from moving forward, but we can also heal them and transform them, and therefore the bits that we detest and despise the most because of things that have happened to us, or just because things a nature that we feel we were born with, the moment we can learn to heal and embrace those, then they become our greatest treasure. They become the power through which love can operate. And this is the other key thing about unconditional love. And I'm going to sort of stop on unconditional love on this point, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience. But the key thing about unconditional love is that it cannot work within a vacuum. Okay, it's everywhere, but it needs channels. It needs something to work through. And when it comes to our inner work, what I've discovered is the place where unconditional love lives and is the most powerful is the place of our core vulnerability. The times we feel the most fearful, the parts of ourselves that we feel are most delicate, that we don't want to expose, that we feel are completely vulnerable, and we hide mostly to protect them, that's where we're going to find unconditional love. That's where it is. It lives within, it's a bedfellow of our vulnerability. So by exposing our vulnerability, we will find love, if that makes sense. So how do you do that? Well, in my school, and I've got several exercises in that first module that will help you with this. In my school, I talk about the ability to gently, compassionately, to reveal to ourselves the weaknesses and the parts that we despise, and to open them and open them and open them without revealing a wound that's going to get hurt again. As we open, what we'll discover is that love will pour in because it needs a home. And its home is our vulnerability. And when we're prepared to embrace that, then that's when miracles begin to happen. And the majority of that work is done not within the conscious mind, although the conscious mind has a very, very important role to play, because the conscious mind needs to stay in charge of the process and agree with the process and want the process, be committed to that process. But the place where most of the work done is the alchemy lab, as I call it, the alchemy lab of the unconscious. So when I work with people, and in my school I talk a lot about how I'm open and willing to work with you if you would like to do alchemy transformational work with me. That is possible, and if you've gone through the course, then you'll find the work with me much more profitable, because you'll understand more of what's going on. But in a nutshell, what's quite amazing, what I discovered was that by somebody being willing to help them with unconditional love, in other words, encourage them and invoke what they know about themselves, and to help them call in unconditional love, we are joined together by this thing that Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. So because of the collective unconscious, I'm able to focus in my unconscious and connect with your unconscious if you're open and willing for love to do that. And through that ability, through that power, we are able to make massive shifts, all engineered by the power of unconditional love. And the manifestation in your life, the things in your life that you want to see come to pass, those positive, creative things, will be manifested, but the nature of those things will be the nature of unconditional love. So it will mean that you're no longer judging or condemning or getting seriously angry and destroying and hurting and doing harm to others emotionally or in any other way. So it's a complete circle of love where, because we're connected together, the power of love wants more than we want for us to enter into our own true empowerment and to begin to bring about change within the context of unconditional love in the world. So that's all I'm going to say about unconditional love. But the reason I go on about it so much is because it lives at the very, very heart of everything that I teach about alchemy, ancient and modern. So for me, I just want to say very quickly, for those of you who've not heard this story, if you've read my book, you've heard some of it, but I just want to tell you my story. It wasn't until I had been several years on my own journey of transformation, inner transformation, where I'm trying to find love within my own life and help to make it manifest and to heal the wounds and to remove the pain of what I kept hidden within inside. It was a memory that my unconscious finally delivered to me that was the key to being able to work with that part of my unconscious self. Now, it is a bit of a funny story in a way. If you know the story of Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, you'll know that there was a period of time where he was forced to live in a cupboard under the stairs in a little house in England. And I'm sad to say that years and years, decades before Harry Potter was ever written, that was the memory that came to me when I committed to find love within myself and within my world and within my soul. And it was a memory that I had been locked in a cupboard for various reasons. I'm not particularly going to describe it now. You can read it in my book. But it was a memory that was a gift from my unconscious self. And one of the things I've discovered in working with people day in and day out is that, generally speaking, the unconscious already holds most of the wisdom that we need for our own healing. I'll say that again. Our unconscious holds within itself most of the wisdom that we need for our own healing. So how do we get in touch with that? So Carl Jung, of course, the last book that he ever wrote, I think it was his last book, was Memories, Dreams and Reflections. And this was him recounting his own experiences of his dreams and understanding his dreams and memories and reflections. And reflections, I've interpreted the word as intuitions, because it was pretty much the same thing. So he would have dreams, he would have memories, and he would have intuitions about the dreams and the memories, the three living together. Now, where do they come from? Where do they live? And I realized, and those of you who study Jung, of course, and even those of you who know a bit about Freud as well, will know that the theory is that the brain, a very delicate brain, is divided into sort of two parts. And the greater part, according to Carl Jung, is the unconscious self. It can't be identified physically, but it is an activity of the brain that almost has a life of its own. But in addition to having a life of its own, it is also the repository of all of our experiences, the repository of our corporate experience as human beings, and that's the collective unconscious, and that's manifested quite often in what he called archetypes. And those archetypes are either enforced in a helpful way or an unhelpful way by our experiences. So he talked about the mother complex or a father complex. What he meant was that each of us will carry into our adult life an understanding of what a mother is or what a father is, just as an example. And that archetype, that vision, that complex that we have of our understanding of what a mother or a father is, will be shaped by our own immediate experience. And those of us who never knew a mother or father, of course, that is going to have a massive impact. Those of us that were abused by our parents, that's going to have a massive impact, and so on. So you get the picture. Now, where does all this live? It lives within the unconscious. So how do we get in touch with that part of the unconscious self? Well, when I work with people, and as you work your way through the school, what you'll discover is that the dreams that we have, or the memories which can just pop up anytime, and quite often when I'm talking to people or they're just talking to me, it's almost like miraculously a memory will just come in, and people will say to me, I've had this memory all my life, but I've never understood it. And then when we look at that memory, or we look at that recurring dream in the context of the work of personal transformation that they're engaged in, then it makes instant sense. And this is the unconscious saying, I have got the imagery that you need to help you transform. If you need to know what needs healing, I've got it. If you need to know where the pain is, just ask me. If you need to know how to heal that, then guess what? This is the unconscious talking. The unconscious is saying, I'm directly connected to the power of unconditional love. There's no barrier within the unconscious and unconditional love. So in my experience, the memory of being locked in the cupboard and how that shaped my understanding of what love looked like, or rather what love didn't look like, what I thought it looked like, and my sort of warped impression of love, and how I interpreted every action around me in the light of that, and how that prevented me from moving forward emotionally in my life. The moment I had that memory, it gave me something to work with. And so by doing the work of alchemy transformation, memories and dreams and the experiences that they reveal to us, and but not just the experiences, but the wisdom around that and how to deal with that, is part of the skill of the alchemist, and it's in the school, and it's in the work that we can do together. The third thing, finally here now, I wanted to just say is why have I chosen alchemy as the metaphor for this work, when I could have chosen all kinds of modern therapies of various types, and that's because of the impact that I've seen the original book by Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist, have on literally hundreds of millions of people. In fact, I would say more people have read this book than have ever been to see a counsellor. I think I'm pretty safe to say that. And not just in Western world, but all over the world, in different cultures, Eastern cultures, Southern cultures, irrespective of ethnicity or race or religion or age. It's reached the heart of every human being. So for me, the big breakthrough moment when I published Paulo's book was to say, is there a metaphor within the concept of alchemy that can enable us, empower us, if you like, to understand the workings of the unconscious, and also the power that lives within the universe and is all around us. And of course, the more I read the book, the more I studied the book, the more yes, actually. And we've neglected it. Alchemy will never push itself on us, but we can choose it. You'll never see anybody trying to evangelize it, including me, saying, oh, you must study alchemy, or, oh, alchemy is the secret, or join my alchemy church. Or, in fact, if anybody actually says that, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction, because that is not alchemy. Alchemy is just there within, it's inbuilt, in my experience, within the psychic processes of being human. And the reason why the ancient alchemists of Egypt 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago were talking about the same things as we're now talking about today, and particularly through the work of Carl Jung, is because they're human. We're the same human beings. And one of the things that they discovered, and I want to sort of end on this note, because this is a really important point about the power of understanding the alchemy process. They said that not only does prima materia consistent in everything, it goes one step further. It wants to transform. It wants to transmute, as they called it. Everything. Everything in the universe is constantly evolving for the better. That's another word for transformation. Evolving towards something purer, to something more refined, something truer, something that is of real value to the universe in general. Whether it's lead into gold, or whether it's a human who is struggling with their own identity, looking for maturation or individuation, as Carl Jung called it. It's all that same process. It's inbuilt, and it has a pattern because we're human. And the reason I'm so grateful to Carl Jung in a way is because he identified that pattern pretty clearly, even though he didn't actually teach the alchemy process. So what I've sort of done in the school, as you'll know from my book, is I've wedded together three key elements. And this is what the school is based on. It's based on the principles of alchemy as I've understood them through The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and as many of you have heard me say before, in the introduction to one of the editions of The Alchemist, he actually says everything I know about alchemy is in this book. The second is what I've learned in my own studies of ancient alchemy and the processes and how I discovered that they matched, even before I knew about them, my own process of personal transformation, and how by using the new metaphor, of alchemy, it's helped me understand the process and has helped me to distill that into the school. So as you work through the 5 modules of the school, you are going to go in a fairly logical order, even though you might jump around, and you will jump around, I'm sure. They follow an order that was laid out by the ancient alchemists. And then lastly, the understanding of Carl Jung himself about the unconscious, the role of archetypes, the role of the human psyche in its ability to heal itself, to transform itself, and the concept of healing and transforming itself is the thought I want to leave you with at the end of this webinar. The power to transform, the responsibility to transform, the ability to enter into a full and joyful and fulfilled existence already lies within each of us. And my prayer and hope is that if you enter the school, if you come and get involved in the school, that the school will help invoke that inner wisdom that you already have and will propel you forward and take you on to where you want to go and achieve the manifestations in your life that you desperately want to do. Live the dream, basically, if you follow the analogy of Santiago in the original story of The Alchemist. The dream which took him to the pyramids, which took him right back to his inner self where the treasure lay. And that's where he found love. And that's what he manifested. I just want to say before we finish, and thank you for being such a patient group of listeners tonight. I just want to tell you a little bit about some of the other components of the school. There is a prospectus, I've just printed it off here, called the School of Alchemy Transformation Prospectus for the year. Now, I said there were 3 main components. There's the certificate course, which is ideal for anybody doesn't really matter whether you're starting out on the road of personal transformation or whether you're a seasoned therapist and you're just looking for a new framework or an additional framework to couch your therapy in, the kind of work, the healing work that you might be doing with others. So I'm offering alchemy as another tool to put in your kit box when you're trying to work with yourself and with others. I've already told you that there is going to be an app, so you can access that. That all comes as part of it. Monthly Zoom meetings with me, a signed copy of my book, which you can apply for. Just let me know your address and the dedication. I'll send that over to you. But there's also a student forum where we can constantly communicate all with each other and so on. And then in addition to the certificate course, you can have access to one-on-one personal work with me, which I'm always thrilled to do and quite frankly I'm the one that benefits from that one-on work as much as the people I work with, because it's an organic, alchemical work that we do together. And I just love catching up, months later with people I've worked with. Even today, two people that I met with today said, "You remember we worked on, in my unconscious column, you remember we worked on that thing? Well, I just want you to know that's been manifested." Somebody today, their main goal was to get free of their fear of not having money, which was serious. It was a serious setback. And she contacted me today and she said, "You're not going to believe this. This is 6 months on, but I've doubled, nearly tripled my revenue in the last 6 months." But I kind of it just happened. And I said, "Yeah, it just happened." And she said, "Yeah, I know why it just happened, because that we went to that fear in the unconscious." And if you're interested, on my website, in the school promotional, I've already added 3 videos from some very brave souls. I want to thank them here personally. You know who you are. If you want to watch their videos, and there's more coming, of people that I've worked with who have been through the process of the school, certainly in their work with me, and talking about the shifts and the changes. So if you're not sure what all this looks like and how it works, just go and listen to one of those videos. They're about half an hour each, but you'll get some massive, really mind-blowing insights into the bravery, the courage of these people to face their worst fears and to allow love to heal those parts, which is just phenomenal. So you have 5 webinars, 25 videos altogether. So there's, if you're not too tired of listening to me, there's plenty more of column in there, talking about every aspect of alchemy and personal transformation. And then there's the one-on-one work with me. And then finally, there is a third component where, if you have worked your way through this, or you already feel you're at the stage where you want to incorporate alchemy transformational work into your therapy portfolio, then 4 times a year, for 3 months at a stretch, I'm taking groups of 4 through alchemy practitioner training. And the heart of that work is assuming that you've digested and you understand the principles in the certificate course, and that we've done some one-on-one work together. It's understanding your ability, your power to help and to invoke the power of unconditional love by working within other people's unconscious. I'm going to kind of end with this, and again, thank you for your patience and thanks for listening today. But I just want to leave us with a thought. It's a thought I had quite recently about Carl Jung, and it's particularly for those of you who've studied him. Those of you that have read his collective works and his various thinkings on how the human psyche wants to move towards individuation, which is having full power over your own life and not being controlled by inner or outer forces, is that when he was sitting in sessions with his clients, and he was asking them to reveal things about themselves so that he could work with them, and he was discussing with them. Since I read his book, Memories, Dreams and Reflections, I get the genuine sense that he was also using the power of his unconscious, because he knew what we now know, is that we are connected, and that my unconscious self is connected to your unconscious self, is that I can bring the power that I know to bear within your unconscious self. And sometimes it just needs that extra bit of help from a fellow traveler and a fellow alchemist, so that at the end of the day, we can all enter into the ability to manifest the power of unconditional love. And if we want to identify ourselves as alchemists, then I think we can. And I think every one of us has the right and the power within to become the alchemist in your world. So I will leave you with that thought. If you want to know more, there's plenty of links wherever this video is. You've received emails from me with links to the promo page. If you want to receive a copy of the prospectus, some of you have already asked one, I'll send that over. And if you want to proceed, if you want to have a chat with me anytime about the school and about the work before you press the button, that's fine as well. Or if you need a bit of time to think it through, because it is a bit of a commitment. In fact, that commitment to want to transform, to want to move your life forward in that way is almost the only essential ingredient you need. Because once love hears and knows that we've made that heartfelt commitment, then, to quote Paulo Coelho, all the power of love and the universe will conspire to make that happen. Blessings to you all. Love to you all. Thank you so much. If you've got any questions, please contact me, and have a great rest of the day or evening, wherever you are. Thank you.